Welcome to Taking Charge of My Cancer podcast, episode 23 already. I am Dorly Munoz, your host, and I have the pleasure to introduce you to an amazing, not just lymphedema therapist, but the executive director of the National Lymphedema Network, Jeannette Zucker. Jeannette holds a doctorate in physical therapy from New York University. She received her lymphedema certification from Klose Norton School of Lymphatic Therapy in 2002 and started her career at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in 2003. She developed the lymphedema therapy program at main campus, which had expanded to span multiple sites through New York and New Jersey. She advanced through the clinical levels from a staff physical therapist to outpatient therapy supervisor in 2012. A resolution was passed in New York, start honoring her for outstanding advocacy and promotion of lymphedema awareness. In 2019, Jeannette left MSK to become executive director of the National Lymphedema Network, where she continues her dedication to the lymphedema community. She strives to promote lymphedema awareness, clinical excellence in lymphedema management, patient empowerment, and clinical engagement. So I'm so excited to have you here with us, Jeannette, and thank you so much for doing this with me today. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dealey, for inviting me. It's really an honor, and I hope that I can add something to this community.
Awesome. So you want to tell us, why did you become a therapist and work with oncology?
Oh, well, okay. So if I were to answer this question honestly, in high school, like I wanted to be a doctor, as many people wanted, to do at some point in their life. But I definitely did not want to have the stresses and the responsibility, the life or death decision making, and the schedule that, a doctor usually has. So then I thought that the next best thing was to become a physical therapist, where you can still have a nice balance of your own life and yet do great and be in healthcare and really be able to give back to the community. So ever since I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to become a physical therapist. And so when I went to NYU, the year that I entered into NYU, it was a transitional year where the physical therapy program was now transitioning to the doctoral program. So my year was very unique in the sense that when you applied to NYU into the physical therapy program, it was a 6-year program, and it was from straight through from freshman all the way through grad school, 6-year undergrad and 2 years of grad, and so that's how I became a physical therapist.
Awesome. Were you ever planning to do something different besides just being in healthcare at all, anytime?
Oh, I mean, I have, I feel as though there's so much in life. Like there's so many things that are just so interesting. I mean, like I at one point really wanted to do something with art. I love to paint, and I love like ceramics and sculpture, and so that was something that I definitely considered at one point in time. And since I didn't necessarily pursue that, I try to incorporate that into my current position as executive director with graphic design and the website development. And I feel as though I've been able to really, incorporate some of that into my current role. I also, at one point in time wanted to become a teacher. I love education, and I love being able to, just help somebody understand something that, you know, um, they need to understand or want to understand and they just couldn't. And so I feel as though even though I didn't take that route as a career path, I am also able to incorporate that into my position with, lymphedema education. And so I feel as though, I just landed up exactly where I needed to be.
Awesome. Awesome. Great answer. Will you give us 3 valuable tips that you learned about your journey?
Well, 3 things. There's so many, right? Like life is just one big lesson after another. And so 3 things that I think would benefit anybody are as follows. The first is, I think that you have to have amazing, like, self-belief. in yourself, like to the point where it's almost irrational. Like if you don't believe in yourself, like how is it possible for you to accomplish anything or do anything or get from A to B or reach your targets, no matter what it is in life, right? It could be as simple as like cutting hair. It could be like day to day. It could be a physical fitness goal. It could be a whole organizational goal, something at work, something with your career. But no matter what, if you don't have a solid sense of self, to the point where it's almost irrational, it's like, how can you possibly move forward and actually achieve what you want to do? And I'll just give you a quick example, right? So it goes without saying in terms of how it's important for the level that I'm at in terms of the National Lymphedema Network. That goes without saying. But another example of how it could be applied is during the pandemic. Obviously, we just had to like sit tight and hunker down and not do some of the normal things that we would normally do, such as like, for example, getting a haircut. So I decided to cut hair for my entire family. And I looked at a picture in terms of what my family wanted. I copied it and I was like, I can do this. This is so easy. And so to this day, I still cut my family's hair, and they have been able to go back to the salon or get like a professional, licensed hairstylist to do it, but they still prefer how I do it.
Oh,
So
how about that?
yes. And you can again apply that to anything.
Uh-huh.
The
Awesome.
second thing is, I would say, action over planning will always be what will move you forward. Like you can, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I still have many things where I will plan to the point where it's almost paralyzing. And at some point, you just have to dive right in and start to take action and see where it goes. And that's how you'll learn, and you'll be able to like mold things as you go along. You'll be able to tweak things and to be able to move forward. But if you were in the planning phase to the point where it's perfect, you will have missed out on so many things, and you will have missed out on opportunities, and you could be planning forever. And then when you execute, it often doesn't go according to plan, because you won't know what's actually needed until you're actually in it. And so like along with this, another valuable lesson that's very closely related is that I've learned to just, for the most part, jump right in and fail fast. Like you can't be afraid of failure. And so, you jump right in and you figure you're probably going to fail at least one or two components, if not the whole thing. You might very well fail. But then you know what? Hurry up and fail, and then learn from it, do it again, do it better. And then eventually when you get to doing it like a million times over, obviously that's an exaggeration, you'll do it well.
Yep, yep. And that's a really good point. And I know you said, from your position right now and what you represent now, but as well, this is a perfect example for our audience out there, right?
Yes,
No.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think my story is pretty interesting in terms of how I came into this position. The organization was going through like a leadership change, and basically it eventually came down to me taking it on or not at all. And like, in other words, if I didn't take it on, the NLN might not be able to continue. And at the time that this opportunity presented itself to me, I was merely a clinician. I was a lymphedema therapist at a hospital setting, and without any nonprofit experience, no leadership experience. Like I didn't know how to run an organization. I didn't know how to do a lot of the things that are required of me in this current role. But I believed in the cause, and I thought that would be enough of a compass for me. And you figure if you can just have like the guiding principle of wanting to make this world a better place and focusing your efforts on a particular community, being the lymphedema community, then if you use that as your guiding compass, then how wrong can you go? And so far, it's served me well, and it's proved that it is enough so far. And hopefully it will continue.
You've been doing an amazing job. I start doing oncology for the last 13 years. And so I remember when I went the first time to the first NLN, you were not there yet. How long have you been on the NLN now?
Well, the first conference that I put together was 2019.
Okay. So again, has been a really, really nice change. So, and then of course we have the opportunity to work together when you've been very kind to invite me to be a speaker on your conference. And you're amazing. I mean, you really are able to, like, support us. And again, like when we went through, presenting through COVID, right? Zoom presentation. And it's like, oh my God, like, how do we do this? And then what if the system failed? And what if the communication is not good? And what if the Zoom falls down? And you've been really challenged by all these versus doing it in person, right? So, and then you did it in like mix up between like, Zoom and in person. And so it has been really a nice change. So you've been doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your kind words. And thank you so much for, being supportive and just, rolling along with me. So it's so great. Like every time I, do a conference, I get a chance to work with amazing therapists like you. And, I'm able to like really see how you grow and how everybody else grows in their own, sector and in their own specialty. And like even you with this podcast. So I'm really so excited to be a part of it.
Thank you so much for being part of it. How about the most painful lesson that you learned through your journey?
Yes. So, so another thing that I've learned is that I believe that you should treat every relationship with the same respect and sanctity as marriage. So, in other words, even with people within your organization, you have to think of it like a marriage. Each and every single person, you're marrying each, person that you welcome to the organization. And I think that just like a regular marriage relationship, you need to date first. And then you need to maybe, be more intimate first before you make that lifelong promise. Because, the people that you surround yourself with, it will determine how successful you are. Because you can have somebody who's totally negative, who does not support you, and every single interaction will be so laborious and it will be so challenging and it won't let you move forward. And then, when even if you have somebody who you want to just maybe turn a blind eye to, right? Because maybe they're not as productive. So then you just kind of say, okay, I'm just going to ignore this person. But then if you think about it like a journey, right? You're on this boat. You don't want to have any dead weight on the boat. You want every person rowing, moving you forward, giving you momentum. And so I guess what I'm saying is that, I have definitely welcomed some people into my circle that I did not necessarily want to be there. And so now I'm very careful. So I go through this long process. It's like before you come into my circle, it's like years.
You better be a long day.
We are going to have a long engagement, and I'm going to see what it's really like to work with you before you come in. And but once you surround yourself with the people who are each like putting in their little bit of effort, and at the very least, even if it's not action, but they are there and they're positive and they're supportive, that's enough too. Like that's needed too. The appreciation, the kind words, like that is all energy that contributes to the whole mission. And so that's what I would say. I would say choose the people that you welcome into your circle very wisely, because it makes or breaks your entire day, your entire mission, your entire career, your entire everything, your whole existence.
Exactly. And as our patients go through a very difficult times, and we always talk about this, don't do it alone. Just really bring in all that people in your circle. And you're absolutely right. You want to bring people who is positive. You don't want to listen or go. Sometimes I say to patients all the time, go to a support group, but I want you to go to a support group who is positive. I don't want you to be listening to the negative and all the bad things that happen to somebody, because it's going to be more scared because you don't know what are you walking into it until you're in it?
Absolutely.
Have all that positive circle around you that is what's going to help you going through this process. So absolutely.
Yes, and another thing I'd like to say about that, which is a great point, is that, I think that patients should feel empowered to choose their healthcare providers, right? Like it's the same thing that I was saying before. Like the lymphedema therapists that they choose, they're going to be in that relationship for a long time. The doctor that they choose, they're going to be in that relationship for a long time. And so, I think that patients should feel empowered to make sure that, first of all, before you even choose a doctor to do your surgery, to do, let's say it's cancer treatment, because if it's oncology, right? To do your therapy, to definitely make sure that, you check them out,
Yep.
have a nice little conversation and see if there's chemistry, see if there's if this is somebody who you want to marry, to see if this is someone who you want to be in this journey with you for the long haul.
That's
So.
yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Is anything that you have that will be of value for our audience, and will you share it with us?
I think if I were to share a universal message, I would say that I think that everybody needs to just realize that they are enough, right? I mean, if you think about like all the things that like trigger us, like things that we do, sometimes we go down the wrong path, and it's often something that might be from childhood where we thought that we weren't smart enough, intelligent enough, pretty enough, beautiful enough, healthy enough, fit enough, whatever it might be. There's always something that seems to be like lacking. And because of that, we strive for things that aren't necessarily what we need. If we just realize that we're perfect just the way that we are, and that all we need to do now is to pursue what makes us happiest, pursue what makes the world a better place, then it frees us up a little bit more. And it also takes the pressure off. You no longer feel like you have to prove something to yourself, because you don't need to.
Yep.
And so I feel as though if everybody were to remember that, like, it just makes it a lot easier, the whole journey of life.
Yep, absolutely. Great message. That's awesome. How can people find you? And I will put that in the description on the podcast. Like I'll put the information that you already sent me. But if somebody wants to find you, how can they do that?
The short answer is not easily. I actually don't want to be found. I'm a very private person. I like a small circle of people in my life, in my daily life. I don't want to be found. I like on my day-to-day basis, all I care about is my immediate family, one or two good friends, and everybody else, like, I don't want you to find me. So
If they want to find you to ask for the specific information, can they go to NLN and then get through you?
Definitely. If it's professional related, absolutely.
Yes,
Lymphedema
professional.
related, they can definitely reach out to our hotline or our NLN account, and we will eventually get back to you. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes. About 3 books that you will recommend the audience.
See, I really like to read dearly, so I found it hard to keep it to 3. So I'm going to share 5. Okay. Okay. The first is what I'd like to share with everybody is I'm a minimalist. I like to have like minimal decision making. So like my wardrobe is very minimal. I always wear black. I keep things simple. I don't like clutter. I don't like anything in the house that doesn't have to be here. So the first book that I would like to recommend to everybody is and allow me just to make sure that I have the title correct. It is The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. Now, she has like a whole series on Netflix now too, and she does a lot of other she does podcasts and all these other courses. But I read this book at the time when it first came out, and before like an organization became like a sensation. And I think if everybody were to really just declutter and keep things minimal, and to really have their physical environment organized, I think that it's life-changing and it makes life so much easier. So that's the first book. The second book I would say is Triggers by Marshall Goldsmith. And this is all about like understanding the things that trigger you, essentially, like what makes you upset all of a sudden, what makes you sad all of a sudden, all the different triggers, whether it be like good or bad. It's just so you can really have a little bit more self-reflection and understand it, and then therefore you can be prepared to control your reactions when you do come across a trigger. That's number 2. The third book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it's really about like how even the smallest changes, but if you do it on a daily basis, like a small habit on a daily basis, it can have such an impact, such a huge impact. So atomic is like a double entendre, atomic meaning like a really small change, but also having immense energy and power. Like I think life-changing. The fourth book, which is now a little bit different, is called Gut and Psychology Syndrome. And the idea is like how you are what you eat. And this goes over like how the different foods really kind of has a major effect on your body, obviously, but how that also closely relates to your psychology. I think that was really interesting. This is by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. And then the last one that I'll share is the most powerful in the room. I'm sorry, the most powerful woman in the room is you. And this is by Lydia Fennett. And, I just thought that, it was very interesting, like how you can totally control how you go about your life. And you can basically make sure that you set yourself up so that you feel empowered when you go about different things, when you enter a room, when you take on a project. And I think that especially since I have 2 girls, I'm particularly protective of women, so I like to empower them whenever possible. So again, kudos to you for doing this. You're a woman, and like anything that just basically evens the playing field a little bit, I support.
Awesome. How about podcast?
So podcast, I think, I think I'm not a big podcast person. I'm more of a visual person, but I would say there are 2 general platforms that I am a big fan of. And the first is Mind Valley. And, obviously, if you want to just turn off the visual, it becomes a podcast. So Mind Valley, they have all of these like self-empowering courses, whether it be like money EQ or abundance mindset, and learning about the chakras, and just basically having a whatever focus you want to like delve into, whether it be memory, fitness, like it's an amazing platform where you can just really grow significantly. Another platform is Masterclass. So it's just masterclass.com, and a host of, podcasts or like, self-care courses that you can really grow tremendously from as well. And the 3 particular classes that I thought were just amazing in Masterclass was the one by Richard Branson. He gave a class on disruptive entrepreneurship, as Devlin on turning ideas into art. And the last is Matthew Walker on the science of better sleep. And in it, I was really excited that he mentioned how when you are able to get your full, hours of sleep in, that is when the brain lymphatics drain. And I was just happy that the lymphatic system made an appearance in that one podcast.
That's awesome. I'm gonna listen to that or look at that.
Yes.
Is any question that you wish I will have asked you and you will have answered it?
Not necessarily, although I've said it somewhat already. Like I would have liked you to ask, like, why do I do what I do? Like, why did I take on the NLN? And I think the best thing that anybody and everybody can do is to find their unique way of making the world a better place. Because like there are just so many causes, right? There's so many things that the world needs, like whether it's being an environmentalist or being, whatever it is. But you just have to find what really inspires you and really sparks you, and then following that path and then doing your little bit to make this world a better place. And if we all did that, what an amazing place it can be, is, will be, could be better, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Will you tell our audience, I know that is NLN doing things with patients as well, like anything besides professionals, things that can be offered to patients?
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing, right? We are here for the patients. Ultimately, we are. Um, and if there's information that's needed, they can, reach out to us. But I guess, for us, we figured that if we can reach the lymphedema therapist, they in turn each are able to help hundreds, if not thousands of patients. But patients are definitely welcome to to reach out to us if they need information, if they need a booklet, if they need to find a therapist. And we do get a lot of calls on trying to find a therapist that is most local to them. So we're here for the patient, and ultimately that's why we exist. So, but we're always trying to innovate and trying to do new things. And so if patients have an idea in terms of what we can do to better serve them, we're totally open.
Awesome.
Yeah, so the one thing that we're really working on right now is we're starting to put together a research committee where we will then accept grant applications. So we're going to start a separate fund that is just for research. So people who want to make donations, and 100% of it goes to research. And then all of that will then be disseminated to people who put in for grant applications. And so, again, that's not exactly directly for the patient, but again, ultimately it is. And but that was just an example of how we're always on the lookout for new programming and new ideas and new ways that we can better serve our community.
Excellent. And no, that's awesome. And then it's a good point, right? I mean, for years, a lot of physical therapy was like really hard to find evidence, right?
Yeah.
And now we're still not the best on it, but we're still coming better and better in going back into research to be able to justify all the great outcomes we see, right? Because we see
Yeah.
outcomes all the time. It's always anecdotal, but sometimes when you go back and look in research, it's like, well, this research was not really conclusive, but
Yeah.
that you do this every day and the amazing results that you see every day
Yes.
is great. But yeah, so glad that you guys are doing that because it's very well needed in the community.
Yes. Well, you
Well,
can look forward to that.
you did great. Thank you so much for being here with
Thank
me
you.
today, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I hope I was able to impart something that will be meaningful and useful or inspiring. But thank you so much for having me. I'm totally humbled by the invitation, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person, dearly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Have a good
Thank you.
evening. Bye.
Cheers, everyone.